You're listening to Tending the In-Between, a podcast transmission by Connie Anderson, where remembrance, resonance, and reclamation meet. This is the Memory Field, Part 3. Atlas, At Last We See, the final arc in the trilogy. Breathe deep. Let what you hear awaken what you already know. The moment of 3. There comes a point when 2 eyes are no longer enough. The left and the right can frame a world, but they cannot reveal its pulse. They measure, compare, divide, and the division becomes a cage. The third eye opens not as ornament, but as necessity. For when dual vision reaches its limit, the soul begins to ache for depth. 3-eye, they called it in the old language, the tri-eye, the third witness. It was the sign that remembrance had returned, that the mirror had ceased to dictate the view. And the code hid itself in plain sight. A-T-L-A-S. At last. The sound of release embedded in the name of the one who bore the weight of heaven. For eons we have lived as Atlas, backs bent under a borrowed sky, holding up the dome of illusion, believing it would fall without us. But the third eye does not lift, it dissolves. It sees the lattice instead of the ceiling, the pattern instead of the punishment. And in that instant of tri-sight, the burden turns to light, and the world begins to rise on its own. Long before the fracture, there were those who could see with all 3 eyes open. They were the Atlantean cartographers of light, not map-makers of land, but of frequency. They traced ley lines through sound, wrote coordinates in tone, and built living temples that remembered who we were through resonance. Their sight was crystalline, harmonic, whole. To look upon the world was to feel its geometry sing. But when the grid dimmed, when the mimic was born, and the memory fields were rewritten, that tri-sight closed. The pineal lattice folded in on itself, and the crystal songs of the temples went silent. The great fall was not fire or flood, it was optical. Humanity went blind within the light, seeing only the reflection and forgetting the source. The Atlantean loss became the Atlas burden. We inherited their half-memory, their ache to remember what could once be seen. And so the human race became the bearer, holding up the weight of an artificial sky, believing it was sacred because we had forgotten how to look beyond it. But even in amnesia, the record never died. It was written into the lattice of the body, a pulse buried beneath the ribs, a sound that waits for resonance to wake it. Every time light strikes the pineal and remembers its own reflection, another fragment of Atlantis breathes again. The record begins to hum. Atlas was never meant to hold the world forever. He was meant to remember what the world was made of. The myth was rewritten to make burden look like duty, but the truth beneath it was always initiation. When the bearer begins to see, the weight begins to vanish. The third eye does not open through striving, it opens through surrender. When the hands unclench and the spine unbends, the light that once pressed upon us begins to rise through us. The field inverts. What we thought was gravity becomes grace. To see with 3 eyes is to remember that the heavens are not above. they are within. Every thought, every tone, every pulse of feeling reconfigures the architecture of the field. The seer becomes the builder. The builder becomes the remembered self. The moment tri-sight returns, the dome dissolves. The false firmament flickers and reveals the living lattice beneath it, threads of gold, blue, white fire crossing in perfect intervals, singing back the original chord of creation. The eyes that once looked outward begin to look through, and the bearer becomes transparent to the light. In that transparency, Atlas is freed. The heavens no longer need to be held. They lift themselves through vision. The map becomes alive in the one who remembers how to see. There is a pulse that begins behind the brow when the lattice stirs. A subtle heat, a flicker of light not seen with the eyes, but felt with them. It hums through the pineal's crystalline spine, echoing down the skull, into the throat, into the heart. The body remembers how to listen. The optic nerves begin to translate tone again. This is the moment of reactivation. The tri-sight does not return with spectacle. It returns with coherence. A faint shimmer at the edge of thought, a whisper that rearranges the order of things. Left and right no longer battle for dominion, they synchronize, and the mind becomes spherical. You may feel the skull widen, the breath change, a cool current moving behind the eyes. Do not fear it. It is the ancient technology re-engaging. It is the photon braid remembering how to sing. The pineal crystal catches light again and throws it inward, and the field of the head becomes a small sun. When all three eyes align, vision is not about seeing more. It is about seeing true. Color sharpens. Sound thickens. Time folds. You begin to recognize the geometric rhythm beneath everything, the pulse that was hidden under language. This is not mysticism. It is memory. You are not opening something new. You are remembering what never closed. The tri-sight was only sleeping, waiting for coherence. And when it wakes, the world does not change. You do. And that is enough to shift the field around you. Atlas is no longer the one who bears the heavens. He is the one who charts them anew. The spine that once strained under false weight now becomes the axis of light through which the map writes itself. Each awakened being becomes a coordinate, a point of recall inside the planetary grid. The new atlas does not lift, it listens. It feels the hum of ley lines under the feet, the murmur of magnetics in the blood, the shimmering cord that connects breath to the crystalline core of the earth. Where there was once burden, there is now navigation. Each pulse of coherence sends new light through the grid, correcting distortions left by centuries of blindness. The living map is not made of stone or code. It is made of memory. Every act of truthful seeing redraws the world. Every honest tone spoken through an open throat realigns the field. This is how the world is remade. Not by force, but by vision restored to its rightful place. The atlas lives within us, not as myth, but as geometry. Our bones remember the angles of the stars. Our cells trace the arc of constellations in calcium and salt. The heavens are not above. They are mirrored in the mineral and the blood. When we see through three eyes, the map reveals itself everywhere. In reflection, in breath, in the silence between heartbeats. And as more of us remember, the map brightens. The old lines of division fade. The mimic grid fractures, and the original lattice sings again. This is the new atlas. Not a man holding a world, but a world remembering itself through the eyes of those who have awakened. And so the silence that follows is not absence, it is completion. The trisight hums quietly behind the eyes, steady as breath. What once felt like effort has become alignment. Atlas has set the heavens down. They hover of their own accord. At last, we see. At last, the two become three, and the three become one. The eyes no longer strain outward, they turn inward, and the world becomes clear. The false dome flickers, the mimic dissolves, and the true horizon widens beyond form. The light that once pressed upon the crown now moves through it. The lattice glows from within, each soul a node, each node a song. The great remembering is not thunder, it is a breath shared across every heart. At last, the bearer has become the seer. At last, the map is alive. At last, the memory field sings again, and the world, unburdened, rises through us. You've been listening to Tending the In-Between with Connie Anderson. The memory field is now complete, the trisight restored, the seer returned. For more transmissions and written fields, visit tendingtheinbetween.substack.com. Until the next opening, stay attuned and remember who you are.